Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Zero Hour Squared Classics. My name is Mike Trujillo. We've got a very, very cool show in store for you today on our YouTube channel, so I do appreciate you checking this out. Bear with me for a minute because we're going to start off talking briefly about a big rock festival that is going to be happening here in Albuquerque on Friday and Saturday, August 4th and 5th, 2023. That would be next weekend. We are talking about the Burque Rock City 2023, which will be held over at Launchpad. It is an all-ages event. It starts from noon to midnight. Both shows, again, Friday and Saturday. Let me give you a list of some of the bands, or if not all of the bands, real quickly. So Friday, August 4th, 2023, the doors, again, are at 12. The stages are unique because there's a launch pad stage and then there's an inside out stage. Both venues are connected or next to each other. So you'll have the opportunity to go back and forth and check out all of these fine artists. There's some really kick-ass bands starting at 1 o'clock. Gnome Stomper. And then Ojo Malo will be playing. Violet Rising will be next. Thunder Horse is next from Albuquerque. Prism Bitch. Very kick-ass band. High Desert Queen will be playing after that. Supergiant will be playing at the Launchpad stage on Friday night. Early Moods will be next, and Fatso Jetson. Then we've got Electric Citizen coming up, and then Brant Bjork Trio. If you're not familiar with Brant Bjork, do yourself a favor and Google him. He's got an extensive body of work, including Caius and several other artists that he's worked with. Now let's talk a little bit about day number 2. The first band starts at 12. That is THC Worm. These kids are pretty cool, an experimental kind of orchestra group. Pretty cool. And they're young kids. They're definitely younger than me. They're more of the Instagram crowd, if you will. Coma Recovery, a local band from Albuquerque. I haven't seen them play in quite some time. Really stoked to check them out again. Sorsha, of course, Albuquerque's own Red Mesa, Roman Barham, who's the drummer and the founder. He's the drummer of Red Mesa, but he's also the founder of the Burque Rock City. We've got Abrams from Denver, Colorado, very good band. And then Tenderizor, something very happening very cool with Tenderizor. We are going to be joined by one of the members of Tenderizor shortly on this interview, so stand by for that. Greenbeard, very cool band. Caught them on the monolith at the Mesa a couple of years ago, actually last year. Beelzebong, Year of the Cobra, Pike versus the Automaton. If you're not familiar, Pike versus the Automaton is I want to say Chris Pike. It's Pike from Sleep and from High on Fire, Grammy-winning award winner right there. Yawning Balch and Weed Eater wraps up the weekend. So again, this is happening. If you're coming from out of town, please check this out. Or if you're coming specifically for this event, you will not be disappointed. You'll get to hang out here in cool-ass Albuquerque. I say that facetiously because it's been hotter than hell here and everywhere else. It is $75 a day or $150 for both events. Again, it is all ages. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, and we'll have these slates put up so you can check out the band listings, their times, and any other additional information. There's also a QR code you can check out there and find out more information regarding the Burque Rock City. All right, so without further ado, joining us right now is a member of a band from Albuquerque, longtime band. He's from here as well. He's one of Burque's brothers. He's a very accomplished individual, needless to say. I don't even know where to begin. He is one of the lead guitarists for Tenderizor, but he is also something that I think I legally have to say, and I say that also with a lot of jest, but it's something that we're very proud about. We're joined right now by a Pulitzer Prize recipient for his music and his composition and art for his work with Voiceless Mass. And he is also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Raven, if I miss anything or screw anything up, he's also the first Native American to win the Pulitzer Prize for music. Something that we are extremely, extremely proud and privileged to have him on to talk about his metal band, Tenderizor. He also runs the Sick distribution. It's a label that also has a lot of various bands from around the world. Very cool stuff, very experimental killer artists. But Tenderizer playing this event is very cool. Welcome, Raven Chacon, to the 0 Hour Squared Classics. How you doing, brother? How's everything going?
Good. Everything's great. Yeah. Yeah. Good to be talking to you today, Mike.
Great, man. Hey, thank you for getting up early. I know you're on the West Coast, so you're about an hour behind, and my hours are kind of crazy. And I know you're busy, and I know you're going to be heading out up north, and then you're going to be coming back to Albuquerque. But it's been a long time since Tenderizer has played Albuquerque. What compelled you guys to get back to do this particular show, and have you guys done other one-off shows in the past few years?
Yeah. No, it's great to be coming together to do this. We haven't played a show in probably 5 or 6 years,
Right.
A lot of things have happened since the last time we played is Steve Hammond, he had moved away from Albuquerque. Steve, of course, people might know from Leeches of Lore, and I mean he's another one. He's got dozens of projects like everybody in the band, but he had moved out to, I think it was Indiana, and then had moved. He now lives in upstate New York. Um, and then I'd been on the road nonstop too. I was living in different places. I lived in Berlin for a little bit, in Greece, and always coming back to Burque, whenever I could. And that's permanent home. But just being on the road as well, and also Chris Kirby, drummer of Tenderizer, he moved out to Vegas, so we were all separated. We weren't in the same town for a while, and so and then the pandemic, right? Nobody was playing shows at all during that, so that was a good 2 years or so where nothing even happened. But nonetheless, we were always working on music. We put out a new EP in right when the pandemic hit. We finally had the time to sit, me and the Day brothers, Mike Day and Pat Day, over at Mike's studio, and we had these songs that were supposed to come out probably years ago, and we just never had the time to put them together. So that came out, and this opportunity came up with this festival that Roman's putting on, and we got hit up to do a show for it. So we said, of course, yeah, let's do it. Let's come together and figure out how to play these songs again.
Very cool. All right, so people that don't know Tenderizer, you guys are a metal band, kind of a traditional metal, heavy metal, but you guys intersperse several types of other genres like noise, like hardcore, like punk. I mean, but still, it's got a very traditional root. I want to compare it to, I'm sure, to Judas Priest, early Iron Maiden. You got the twin guitars. Steve Hammond's vocals are some of the most high pitch and crazy that I've heard. It reminds me of early Rob Halford during the Sin After Sin, or maybe the Stained Class album, with Beyond the Realms of Death. He has this crazy falsetto that even reaches higher octaves than even Rob Halford at time. Very, very unique. How did Tenderizer get started? How many years ago has it been since you and the Day brothers and Kirby and Steve got together?
Yeah, so me and the Day brothers, we used to have a band back in the late 90s, in around 97, 98, called Los Subliminados. And what this was, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it was like surf rock, rockabilly, noise, whatever, kind of, shift genres. There'd be like, death metal in the middle of a country song, all over the place, grabbing, I don't know where the inspiration from this stuff comes from, like Mr. Bungle or Ween or something like that, just whatever. Everything we wanted to play, we just put it in one song. And a few years after that, I'd moved out to LA. I came back to Albuquerque, and we started this really big ensemble of people to make noise. So we called this group Death Convention Singers. And the Day brothers and I reunited, started playing together again during that, and just making up compositions for each other, just playing noise. We'd do it underground basements. We had some venues for a while. This place, One Kind, Small Engine Gallery. We'd play at the Stove, for people who remember the DIY scene back in, I don't know, mid 2000s. But yeah, we just started playing music again. And of course, those guys were playing in different groups. They had a group, Cowboy Up, Old Man, Fondo was another group they were playing in. And we were just sitting around one day, just drinking in the, at night, and had some guitars, and we were showing each other these riffs each of us had come up with when we were like 15, 14 years old. I'd play something, Pat would say, "Oh, I have this one I made when I was a kid." And Mike had a bunch of stuff, and we just put it all together and said, "Let's make a band," of kind of, noise musicians who grew up listening to metal. And that's how Tenderizor started. We brought in Kirby, who was playing with Sabretooth Cavity at the time. Anybody who remembers that band, kind of another kind of like abstract funk group with a lot of different influences, P-Funk, Parliament Funkadelic, all kinds of stuff. And then Steve, who, like I said before, was this great band, Leeches of Lore. And so the five of us, coming from these different influences, a lot of it experimental, just put all these songs together. And it came together pretty quick. Probably ended up with about 10 songs in a matter of months, because we had all this stuff we'd written when we were kids.
Right.
And that's how Tenderizer started,
That's cool.
And it's still very much steeped in a tradition of experimental music, atonal music, putting like, I don't know, like tone goes out the window. We put like 5 or 6 distortion pedals together,
Yeah, that's badass. And I again, it's rooted though in traditional metal, which is cool. And then, like you said, you've got all these other nuances that put together something really unique with Tenderizer. You currently have, so what is it? It's 3 albums now, or 2 or 4? Because you mentioned a new one, but
we only have. Oh, you're right. We have a full length album called Touch the Sword.
Right.
And that was these kind of first 8 kind of songs that we wrote, and they very influenced by like the first 2 Maiden albums with Paul Di'Anno and like you said, Priest, Stained Class, early thrash metal, Exodus, Slayer, of course, all that stuff. And then just other kinds of experiments going on. I mean, we did a few shows with this project where we played the whole set with Casio keyboards, those little SK1 keyboards you used to be able to, sample your voice and play. We did a whole set of our metal songs with the keyboards.
Oh, that's cool.
And everything we put out has been just vinyl, so that first album was on my label 666. That was a full length. And then we did a limited lathe cut. I think it was just like 50 of those we made, hand cut each one. And those were a bunch of cover songs. We did a Dio song, we did Maiden, and some other stuff on there. And then in 2020, we put out a 10-inch EP with 4 more songs that we've been making in the meantime. And yeah, that one's out on vinyl on 666 also.
That would be Glory Horse, correct?
That's the Glory Horse, yeah.
With arguably the greatest cover of all time, and I'm talking about album cover, the jacket, man. That is the best cover.
Oh yeah,
and we're going to show that here. And extremely beautiful booty on there, and a very cool ass album, man. I love that 10-inch. Both of those, by the way, Touch the Sword and Glory Horse are some of the more unique and interesting albums that I've heard in a very, very long time in metal. And again, the nuances and the diversity and the experimental stuff that you bring in, it doesn't go over your head. It just makes it really, really fun and interesting. I kind of refer to Glory Horse, the song itself, which is side 2 of the 10-inch, and it's just the one song, but it's got this kind of really cool droning instrumental piece that I really, really dig. It's interesting, it's powerful, and one thing about Tenderizer is you guys make really heavy stuff that rocks your head, and it's not boring. And you hear Steve's vocals and the twin leads. Kirby's drums are amazing, especially those crazy, large, huge kick drums that he has. I mean, it's pretty spectacular stuff. And again, you can get it on your label called 666, but you can also, or Sick SICK. Also, you can get it on Bandcamp and other various places like that. So,
it's it's fun. A big part of this is just making records too, just going in the studio and making these songs and then recording it all ourselves, experimenting in the studio as well.
I'm stoked to have you on, man. It's been a very long time since I've seen you guys play. You remember I was doing the old public access shows, and you were doing a whole bunch of stuff in Albuquerque. I want to say here even that you were integral in the Albuquerque scene in terms of metal, rock, experimental, noise. You support a lot of really cool artists. How should I say it? Endeavors, different things, and there was a lot of people. It was like kind of a core of people, and you had these several shows. Some of them were underground, some of them were in some of the regular venues, as far as like Launchpad, different places like that. But I think that what you brought to the table was extremely important. I also know that you were working with like some, I guess we could say this now, it's okay, private, pirate radio. So you always had your hands at something moving. And to see your success right now is absolutely tremendous. And I want to thank you for some of that work. What did you think of what you were doing and inputting into Albuquerque? Because I saw so many bands. I'm trying to think the one band that I saw in a tiny home that like a little house party, and then all of a sudden they were playing at with Daughters over at Sunshine, not too maybe a couple of years ago. They're really gaining momentum, getting big. What are your thoughts on that scene back in the day and your input in it?
Yeah, that was now that you bring that up, I saw that show too. Yeah, that was Health. That was this band Health that
thank you. Yeah.
I went to their first show in LA, one of their first shows. I might have even booked one of their first shows at this place, Il Corral. So I left Albuquerque around 2002. I was interested in making noise. We were doing noise concerts out in the desert for like 5 people. We did a couple concerts on rooftops. Again, this was like very small scene of people. And of those 5 people, I think really only like 2 of them really liked noise. The others tolerated it, or it was, somebody's girlfriend or boyfriend or something, and they hung out. But so when I went to LA, I found a bunch of people that were into this stuff that I was doing in Albuquerque, and I think it was there. I had already started my label in Albuquerque, but it was really just to put out my own music as well, maybe a couple friends, but. It was when I was out there in California that I saw this really healthy scene, diverse scene, guys and gals, young people, all ages, all different kinds of people doing this stuff, and huge audiences and community around it. And when I came back to New Mexico a few years later, I think bringing that knowledge with me, meeting up with some other people who were doing, great things, you included. My sister Autumn does a lot of stuff with radio. Derek Catterwall was doing a lot of stuff with radio also and promoting shows. And then a new generation of people that like to listen to noise, and these people weren't there 10 years previous. So I think there was a lot of excitement that just kind of lined up, and I happened to come back into town at a time when I had a little bit more resources to run a venue, to run my own label. I knew bands from all over the country because I'd seen them in California, or I'd been on tour so much and had met them on the road that, we became friends, and it became part of a way for Albuquerque to be part of this larger network, for being, a small city, but a city that has a ton of talent, a ton of, good people who just want to make things happen. So it just kind of came up from there, and I'd continued to tour, and I still do. I mean, shoot, I'm on the road right now, but that kind of work never ends. You just keep on going and you keep on doing your thing. And whether it's again, still playing for like 5-10 people, or you play for, hopefully more people than that, but, it's all the same work,
As far as Tenderizor, are there any plans to do any more new recordings, maybe do some more one-off shows, and maybe even a few smattering of shows anytime, or are you kind of too busy right now? And plus, is it hard to wrangle all the cats together, seeing that Steve's in another state and you got some other guys elsewhere?
Yeah, it's funny. We still haven't been in the same room yet. I got to go out. We're going out to Albuquerque next week, and we're gonna rehearse the hell out of this stuff. But we'll have to see. I think it's definitely possible, because the funny thing is that Steve and I live near each other now. I moved up to Hudson Valley, New York recently, and I'm only about an hour away from him. So I could see this process continuing. And it was always kind of a way of just, me and the Day Brothers get together, come up with, some of that kind of foundational material, and then put Kirby on it, and it turns into a whole nother thing. And then, that last layer of what Steve brings. And Steve's also, phenomenal songwriter. All of this, it's from afar now, you can do things, Dropbox, all that stuff. It doesn't seem, out of the realms of possibility anymore. But I think, of course, people have different schedules and time and priorities. But it's something I think can be ongoing, even in the most abstract way. I know we even got a few more songs that we haven't recorded yet that are out there, and if we can remember how to play those, it'll probably end up on a release.
Nice. What I love about Tenderizor is, well, the number one and most important thing, it's your Albuquerque base. You're from here, and you're one of there are so many hidden and obscure metal bands. Let's just put it this way. There's millions of them. You can turn over a rock anywhere in any part of the world and find a band, but there's also a level of quality. I mean, and what I think that Tenderizor has that level of quality to endure the test of time. Listening back to these albums, it had been a little bit for me, and I broke them out, and I found myself just getting high and drinking in the room and having my own party. This music is it's cool, and you guys are all veterans and have done different types of music. Of course, again, we opened up talking about your accomplishments, and one of these days I want to talk to you about all of that stuff, but I want to keep it focused primarily on Tenderizor. But it's fun metal, but it's good and it's different. And again, you hear, Steve Hammond's voice and the Day Brothers. I mean, it's just really kick ass, man. I really, really like it, really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing your set again. It's going to bring back some old memories, but it's going to be fun to see you up on stage here in Albuquerque. And it's been so long. What are some of your expectations in terms of playing out when you haven't together in this length of time?
Well, yeah, it's intended to be fun music too. I mean, when we were thinking of putting this together, we couldn't help but it's kind of we'd play something and we were sitting here almost in our 30s, looking at playing riffs that we wrote when we were like 15 or so, and just kind of finding some humor in that in a way. I mean, but also there's some charm in that. You can see your influences and how this comes out in this thing you made, but you can still hear it. You're like, oh, it sounds like a Motorhead solo, or this sounds like the Maiden, dual lead kind of thing. And but at the same time, you're trying not to turn it into some kind of parody or anything. And I think that's where the layer of experimentalism helps mediate that. We're saying, oh, okay, well, what if we, transposed it like this? What if we added this other layer? What if we added a polyrhythm in there? And it changes it into something else that still has that fun energy, this kind of, it's still like someone's still party time, riffs, it's like going through the, like atonal kaleidoscope of sound. And so I think that's always kind of our process of making those tracks. And then transferring that live, I think, like I was saying, the tone we are seeking is still in the genre of noise sometimes too. And that can be fun. Getting down in the basement and having a massive PA and just blasting noise to each other. And it's kind of it's in some ways for me, noise replaced, metal and punk for that kind of energy. It wasn't people standing around, like arms crossed, and it was kids just going crazy, getting their eardrums blasted. And that's the energy we hope to bring with this project.
That's awesome that you bring that up, because growing up, I was a metal kid that loved punk. I loved different genres, but metal was my favorite. I'm full-blown Hesher, Motorhead, all that other stuff. But you also helped introduce me into another subgenre that, like you said, took a step from metal and became more extreme. And you and I were also talking about, when I talked to you on the phone briefly about Occasional Detroit, I broke that album out, listened to it, and man, it's noise. It's intolerable noise, but I think that's what's endearing about it, because it's a noise and metal are kind of the extremities in the music mindset for a lot of people. And I think that's where we find escapism oftentimes, and it just kind of takes us away. And I think that's, again, evident in Tenderizor, because it looks and sounds like you guys are having just a tremendous amount of fun. rather than worrying about so many other aspects of what, is there going to be somebody that's going to do a review, or are we going to turn people around? No, everybody just gets engaged and gets involved. And I think that that's what's really cool. Want to talk about some of your metal influences that led into Tenderizer. And I'm just going to ask you flat out, which guitar duo do you find better? Is it Adrian Smith and Dave Murray, or is it Glenn Tipton and KK Downey?
Oh shoot, probably Priest. Yeah, probably Priest.
Yeah.
But man, those like Killers though. I mean, that's my favorite Maiden album, and I think the stuff on there is like, that more kind of old school Maiden, where it sounds like punk, right? It's like it has this different energy before Bruce Dickinson got in there. It's like, yeah, I think that's a huge influence for all of us in the group. Just that I don't know, that genre, right? Like before it became super, mythological metal or whatever, medieval. It's like still had this kind of fun to it, and this kind of I don't know, this kind of bounce even to it. I don't know how to describe it, but it just rocked, rocked in a different way. Didn't become too serious.
Right.
But yeah, all this other stuff ends up in the music. I mean, the work that you brought up before that I do too. I mean, like classical music. I mean, that's a big part of my work, is writing for classical musicians. So there's parts of Tenderizer songs that first emerged as something I wrote maybe like for a string quartet. There's a song we have that opens the Touch the Sword album called Hallucinations, 3 guitars tapping at the same time. This kind of neoclassical kind of thing. And that was something I wrote as a string quartet back when I was at UNM, like just as a kind of study, for writing a classical piece. And so different things like that, I feel like there's probably some things Steve has contributed to that, and like, Mike and Pat, they play in the honky tonk bands too, all 3 of those guys. And so you can kind of hear that in there as well. And of course, Kirby has played, very versatile drummer. So I think a lot of these other genres end up, coming through in the music in some ways as well. I mean, I used to play guitar in a mariachi group, and I was practicing these songs the other day, and I was thinking, oh, this kind of came from this. I think this kind of a chord progression or something. So all this stuff ends up in there one way or another.
So for somebody like me who is not very versed, let's just put it this way, I'm not trained in music, and I'm a frustrated musician, which is why I like doing the media end and kind of picking y'all's brains as to what you do, what you're thinking when you create it. But I guess I'm not crazy then when I listen to Hell Awaits and I hear sort of like a symphony orchestra buildup. Am I correct in something like that? Hell Awaits really, for me in '86, when I heard that, I was like, I was hearing guys like Richie Blackmore and Yngwie Malmsteen play the classical stuff, and they would incorporate Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and just all kinds of stuff. But when it came to thrash metal, I think a lot of people thought, oh, this is just loud noise. And it really had a buildup and an arrangement. A lot of Megadeth at that time did as well. And I showed my girlfriend some of that. She's not a metal person. She's becoming one now, but I showed her that. And she says it is like an orchestra. So I guess I'm not crazy in that regard, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's still, I think our approach in working with this, that's why I was saying, sometimes in the studio too, is, I mean, coming up with all these other parts. I mean, potentially in this group, there's some songs where we have, I mean, Steve plays guitar, and there's parts where he's playing bass, and we pull out 3 guitars in some of these songs. So we're arranging all these things. I mean, we're making them harmonize. We're writing these kind of intricate parts within themselves. And, I think that overlap of how metal and classical music functions, I think that's something that us in this group really, I think without over analyzing it, I mean, it's something we really spend time figuring out. And I think it's become a big part of the music, of just thinking of these different layers and how they might function and interact with each other.
Let me ask you a personal question. When and how did you realize that you were basically a musical genius? I don't want to sound facetious, but I mean, but you're able to play a lot of stuff and just compose, and it's on a different level, man. It really is.
I'll give you a different answer. It was, I'm still learning to play music. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought I was playing piano. I got the opportunity to play piano, my sister and I, when we moved from the res out to Albuquerque. And that's what started me off. And I'm not a good piano player by any means, but it helped me understand notes and read music. And whether that was, I mean, most musicians in the world, surely most of the amazing musicians in the world do not read music. You know, there's musical cultures all over the world, and people don't have to read music. But it was a foundation for me that I think helped me in a lot of ways. But still, piano, I learned that instrument, but I really wanted to play the saxophone or the electric guitar. And I really wanted to play sax, and I'm still trying to learn the saxophone after 40 years or whatever.
Right.
And I suck at it, and then guitar, I'm a little bit better at that. So, it's just something I keep learning from. And Tenderizor was another way to do that. Another way to practice, to exercise, to learn more about myself as a musician. And, it's an ongoing practice, even writing classical music. I think a lot of this was, to be honest with you, was not being proficient on any instrument, but having an interest in a lot of instruments. So, I try to learn the cello, try to learn the clarinet, try to learn any instrument out there. And it's more to understand the instruments for me and be able to compose for them than to be proficient on any of them. Mm-hmm. I have this group with this musician, John Dietrich of Deerhoof. He was also a longtime Albuquerque resident. Amazing band, Deerhoof. And he's a great guitarist. But we have this group together called Endlings, where we're basically playing the instruments we don't know how to play, or we're not, necessarily proficient at. But one thing John and I both have that we like to pride ourselves on is editing skills. So we we record ourselves playing these instruments and edit these into songs that sound like music you've definitely never heard before.
That's awesome. What contemporary metal bands are you listening to, or you don't? Is there anything new that kind of catches your attention?
That's a good question. It's I one of the things I love to do is just go see new music, all the time, and live music if I can. And that's slow. To be honest with you, I mean, that's slowed down since pandemic. So I haven't been able to keep up on that. You mentioned some bands earlier that are going to be on the festival, THC Worm. I mean, I caught them at they were playing outside that Long Hair Records shop in Albuquerque during pandemic, and I caught them. I was blown away by that energy. And what I was listening to the other day though was the Cavalera brothers from Sepultura re-released their early albums and re-recorded them. Mm-hmm. So that's some new music I'm interested. I mean, it's not new music, but it's re-recorded, remastered, redone. And that stuff, it sounds amazing to hear that, those old songs with that old production, but redone. But yeah, I mean, I try to catch whatever I can. There's a lot of improvised music that I always try to catch, living on the East Coast now. And but yeah, I haven't kept up on a lot of stuff.
So I definitely got to bring up the 666 distro label. What other artists do you have on that currently, and how do we get a hold of you for that?
Yeah, I've got to update the site. We almost everything from the past, on the roster is completely sold out. These releases, especially the early ones, I mean, they were in such limited run of maybe only like 25 tapes were made. I know when we did the occasional Detroit tape, I think we made 80 of those, and they sold out pretty quick. And a lot of those releases, they're all handmade. I'd sit in my room and just make tapes, dub tapes all day, make the packaging, fold the J cards for the tape, collaborate with the musicians who I'm putting out to make their own packaging as well. I know Sabretooth Cavity screen printed a bunch of like gunny sacks, that was their album cover.
Nice.
But more recently, I put out a couple musicians. All of the musicians on the roster are from the Southwest. So the two releases that are out right now to plug is an album by a musician there. He lives in the East Mountains, William Fowler Collins. He's a guitarist and experimental musician. Plays guitar and does all these kind of amazing drone effects on his instrument. And so that's an LP that came out a couple of years ago. You can find copies on his Bandcamp. William Fowler Collins at Bandcamp is his. And then there's another musician based in Phoenix named Gene Tripp, and that's the alias of a musician named Jay Huffman. He's playing a band, Monophonic Hillside. And I don't know how to describe this. It's kind of like dark country folk music, really beautiful songs. And that's out on LP as well. And so, yeah, I'm just, making these things happen, help produce them, help get them pressed. And I've been so busy, I don't really handle the distribution of them anymore. So just go straight to those artists' websites, and you can get the releases there. I think Longhair has, for local Albuquerque listeners, can find a lot of the releases there. They stock almost everything we got in print, the Tenderizer albums as well.
Oh, cool. Right on. So there's still some of those available that people can get.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I want to hear stuff like, and I don't know, I know you only got a couple more minutes left with us, but you got stuff to do, but a couple of songs crack me up, just the titles, like Rockweiler and Pitbull. Any connection that both of those songs have dog titles in it and they're back to back? Is there anything interesting, kind of a theme going on there, or is it just how it just happened?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a big dog theme going through all these songs. Pat Day had a Rockweiler at his house. Mike had a Pitbull, so of course we just name a song Rockweiler, name one Pitbull. But it's referencing the pit, getting in the pit. Nice. There's another song, Bitch Corrector, which references pitch correctors, right? But also some people see the dog reference in that one as well. There's a lot of songs. They have this kind of political undertone, but at the same time it's about partying, race car driving, anything, right?
Right.
So it's all over the place, different layers. It all depends how you want to look at the stuff. I'm not going to try to intellectualize any of those or anything. It's just, it's metal. It doesn't have to do that. It could be looked at in different ways, and none of it has to make sense.
Nice. Ever. My favorite song all time is "The Gilded Night." Man, that for a closing song, a closing track on an album, that one just blasts. And that's where you really get what Steve Hammond, the vocalist, has to offer to the table. I mean, just again, his octave, it's a unique voice. I mean, there's a lot of metal guys that could sing like that, but his is very distinct. But it does, obviously, does have, the first thing I think of is Rob Halford, but even a just crazy higher level extraterrestrial version of Rob Halford, man. That's pretty cool. Are you guys going to play that song here in Albuquerque?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We're going to play every original song we've written. And Steve's somebody who's, I think if I remember correctly, his first instrument was voice. He was having to sing in church, sing in community choirs, and just developed an amazing voice. And his bands, Leeches of Lore, for those who don't know that group, definitely check that out. I mean, that's, again, another kind of thrash, honky tonk hybrid. I don't know. It's all over the place. Kind of old school country style, mashup there. But his, he can switch between these different genres, and his range is phenomenal. But Gilded Night is it's funny that me and the Day Brothers, most of these songs came together from riffs we had, and Steve said, "Hey, I got this whole song that I wrote when I was a kid." I was 16, and it was about dragons and all this medieval stuff. And he's like, it never fit in any project I was doing, but it fits in Tenderizer. So that's Steve's song, Gilded Night. And we heard that and we're like, man, this is all of these old school bands, power metal kind of stuff smashed together into this thing. And, it all has this element of sleaze in it too, that we appreciate too. So we put all that stuff in there, and yeah, it's one of my favorite songs for sure.
Nice. All right, folks. Well, once again, Burque Rock City happening August 4th and 5th, 2023, a week from, just remember August 4th and 5th. It'll be happening at Launchpad and Inside Out. It is an all ages event. Starts noon to midnight both days, Friday and Saturday. Tenderizer will be taking the stage 5 p.m. on Saturday over at Launchpad. We are really looking forward to that. Raven, I know you are extremely busy, and I want to thank you for taking a few minutes or at least a good hour of your time. I know you got to get some other stuff done, but to talk to us, talk to the folks of Albuquerque. Of course, this is posted on YouTube so everybody can see it, and I invite everybody to check it out. I want to invite everybody worldwide. Come over to this event. Check out what we got here in Albuquerque. Some great bands on this lineup, and you can see again on the slate all the bands that are going to be playing. Of course, Matt Pike again. Pike versus the Automaton, if you're familiar with, of course, High on Fire, Sleep, all of that stuff, Bjorn Bork, all these cool bands, but Tenderizer is something very near and dear to my heart, and looking forward to that set. Is there anything you'd like to tell the folks out there in the world about Tenderizer, about what you're doing? Please feel free to promote or plug anything that you've got that you'd like folks to check out.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks again, Mike. It's been great.
Yeah, looking forward to the set, man. You guys are going to have merch too, right? I need to get me a Tenderizer shirt and represent.
Oh yeah, we got to make more shirts. Shoot, I didn't even think of that, but we definitely got a bunch of the Glory Horse records. They, because of the album cover, they wouldn't let us put that up on iTunes or anything. It kept getting banned. So we'll have some of those. We'll have hard copies of those. I think I got a couple CDs I made of Touch the Sword as well, and we got some LPs of that. But yeah, we're just stoked to come out, and it's got the dual venues. It's going to be the Inside Out, right? Is the other one the roofless?
Yeah, that's that doesn't
bar,
have
right?
That was the old Golden West. Yeah, so it'll be there, and that's a cool place now.
Yeah,
the old roof. It's nice and cool in there, and it's got a good vibe. I like that place quite a bit. So that's going to be nice. Again, that's at Inside Out and Launchpad. So. Again, we're looking forward to having you. Raven, also want to say very proud of your accomplishments and wish you continued success. You represent Albuquerque, you represent New Mexico, and you represent the Native and Chicano communities and everybody very well. Very proud of you. And again, I'll sit down with you one of these days and we'll talk about your other projects and winning that high accomplishments in that Pulitzer Prize. Congratulations on that. And again, thank you for getting the band together again for this Albuquerque show. And we hope to see you more often. And if you haven't heard Tenderizer, do yourself a favor. We'll have all the links at the end of this so you can acquire a copy of either of the 2 or 3 albums that Tenderizer has. Any final words, brother?
No, thanks again. And it's going to be good to see all friends and family out there. And yeah, we'll see you in a week, Mike.